What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In this video we are going to be getting started on making the new roof for the Excelsior kit. It's going to be awesome. It's probably stretched out into a few different videos. We're definitely not going to get it all done in one video here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you exactly how I'm going to do this. It's not so much going to be a tutorial really, because there's so many different ways to do this kind of thing. So with that being said, I'm just going to be showing you guys the way that I do it. I've never made a roof before, so I may run into some aha moments or whatever, but you guys are going to be there along for the ride. So first off, I'm going to show you exactly what I'm going to be using to get this done, and then I will go into showing you the process of what I'm going to be doing step by step, and then we'll get right into getting it done. Let's get to it. Okay, so moving right into the garage here, you can see I've got my supplies and the things that I'm going to be needing, at least most of them, laid out here in my working area. I've also got some stuff down here, but I want to show you first that the first thing that I actually did is I established my center line on the top of the roof. That's going to be the most important part, especially for doing a new roof design. You want to make sure that you have the very center dialed in, because we're going to be doing obviously a shape on both sides of the roof, and you definitely don't want one side a little skewed or a little more off to one side than the other. So establishing that center line is definitely key. Now the way I did this was very simple. You can just use something like this. It's like a tailoring measure tape that's very flexible, or you can use more of a traditional metal type of measuring tape. And all I did is I just took 3 measuring points, one here, and one back here, all the way across the roof. And then I took the middle of each measurement, and I established 3 points where I then went ahead and connected all 3, like connect the dots, and we got a nice center line there. It's just a very simple way to do it. Never try to go off of just one measurement. Make sure that you're taking at least 2 or 3 or more so that you're really dialing it in correctly, especially for something, again, like a roof. You don't want to get this wrong. The next thing I did is I put points where I want the general shape of my double bubble design to live in. So the front area is going to be kind of more toward the center of the front windshield, and it's going to actually be kind of a horizontal diagonal back towards a little more of a shallow space toward the back. So looking at it from the front, it will actually be like that, like a V, instead of straight back. So that's the design that I'm going for. I don't want to go too crazy with this roof design, so I'm going to keep it really simple, but I do want to kind of spice it up by not just going straight back, but actually creating the designs at an angle on both sides. And to get those points right there, it was very simple. Same thing, just use your measurement, measure it out the exact same on both sides for front and back. So that's the only thing I have done so far. Other than that, the roof is still completely stock, and you guys are going to see it moving forward from this point. So let's get into some of the materials I'm going to be using to do this. You can see here I've got basic stuff. I've got a marker, I've got tape, I've also got a clear packing tape. This is very important. You definitely want that. And then I've got a measuring tape, as I explained just a minute ago. And then I have a piece of cardstock, like really thick cardstock or poster board, I guess this would be. You can get this at a craft store, Walmart, or whatever. And we're going to be using this to actually create the walls where we're going to be building up our clay. And I will explain that in just a moment. We are going to be using these bad boys right here, and some of you have probably seen these, a lot of you probably have these, and they're going to be very key in this particular build. And what they are essentially is they're tools that allow you to actually get the contour of certain complex shapes. So each one of these little ribs right here actually moves independently, and what you can do is actually just place it on a curved surface or whatever shape you're trying to get. And in this case, the roof, as you can see, I lay it down there, and actually captures the shape, at least very approximately, of that roof line there. So then I can lift it off the car and I have the approximate shape. So that's going to help me tremendously, where I'm then going to go ahead and translate that shape onto my cardstock right here. And that will allow me to cut out a perfect little wall from the front all the way to the back in the cardstock, which I will then go ahead and mask with packing tape, and that will let me know exactly how high I need to build up my clay along both sides. Speaking of the clay, I have my clay already set out here and ready to go. I flattened it out into several sheets here, so it's very easy to apply and easy to heat up again if it does get cold and hard. This is plastilina modeling clay. This is what I've used to pretty much build this entire kit. Everything that you can see, like all this stuff, was actually shaped in clay first, and then it was fiberglass. So we're going to be doing the same thing, using the clay and establishing our shape for our new roof design on both sides, and then we're going to be fiberglassing the clay. And as for the fiberglass, I am going to be using both the cloth and the mat. I'm going to be layering up at least 3 layers of each back to back on this using polyester resin, which I have right here ready to go. And we want this thing to be pretty strong. It doesn't have to be super strong right now. It just needs to be strong enough where after it's cured up over the clay design, we're then able to go ahead and take it off of the roof to remove all the clay and clean it up and everything without it warping or cracking or doing anything weird. So I believe that 4 layers of each will be sufficient to do that. I may do a 5th just to play it safe, but what's going to really give it all of its strength is going to be a carbon fiber overlay that we're going to do after on top of the fiberglass, and that's going to be using epoxy resin, of course. And so that's what's really going to make this thing really strong and look really good. So that's pretty much all I'm going to be using. I may use some other things here and there if they come to mind while I'm in the middle of the project, but for right now, I believe I'm good to go with everything that I have here that you see. By the way, guys, everything that I'm going to be using to do this project is going to be linked in the description below. So if you want to try this out yourself and you need some of the supplies that I've just showed you, check out the links below and you'll find them there. So the first order of business is going to be establishing a border of clear packing tape. I want to make sure that the entire border all the way up to where we're going to be doing the fiberglassing is all completely covered in clear packing tape. I'm also going to cover over the A-pillars right here because I don't want any of the resin, especially getting on this little rubber seal between the roof and the A-pillar. Definitely don't want any of the resin to get onto that because it can eat away at rubbers and plastics. I'm going to make sure it's all covered with at least 2.5 inches of packing tape all the way around. Aside from protecting our plastic areas and rubber areas, like this one also here at the windshield to roof, but aside from protecting those, the packing tape's main purpose is really to act as kind of a release agent. After we get done doing our fiberglassing, it's going to allow the fiberglass to release from the roof very easily because fiberglass does not stick on this stuff at all. So it's going to be able to pop off of there really well from all corners. Especially we're gonna get in there and pry it just like that, and it should pop off all in one unit. Now we don't have to put any packing tape in the middle because obviously this section is going to be covered by clay. I am probably going to end up trying to put packing tape over the center though, because we are going to end up laying the fiberglass in the center recessed area as well, and I want to definitely make sure to protect these center areas of the seal in the front and the back also. So there will be packing tape in the center and then just along the edges here of the roof line. Okay, and just like that, I've got my 2 inches of packing tape all around the edge of the roof. I also went ahead and did at least this half of the center section as well. I haven't done any packing tape on the other side just yet. I'll do that once I start getting ready to lay up my clay on that side. I'm just going to focus on this side for right now. I made sure to get all of the rubber and plastic trim pieces covered sufficiently so no resin is going to be making contact. There's your look at the packing tape alongside the back side as well. So now that the packing tape is all dialed in, I'm going to go ahead and move into starting to make my walls for my clay layup. Now in order to do this, of course, I used these 2 pieces to get the actual shape of the roof, and I have that. I actually used both of these because this one alone was not long enough to cover the entire surface area of the roof, so I just happened to have this smaller one also, so I took an entire roof shape, or as much as I could, and it's something about like that is what the roof shape is. Obviously my cardstock isn't completely long enough, but I'm not too worried. I'll kind of be able to just go by eye to take the clay and taper it off on the tail end right there. So I'm going to go ahead and trace this line here, and that's going to give me the bottom section of the wall, and then I will actually be able to decide at this point where the top part of the wall will come up to. So if I want the humps to come up a little bit taller, I can make that top part a little bit taller, or if I want them to be a little bit more smaller, I can come down a little smaller. And I think I'm going to be somewhere right in between. I don't want them like super huge. I just want something nice and subtle. It'll still have a really nice aggressive line in the centers and all that, but I don't want them like so huge that it's distracting. So I'm going to get something nice and tasty. So let me play around with this and you guys will see when it's all done. Okay, so as you can see, I went ahead and I traced the line of the roof here and then just cut off this bottom section, as you can see here. And as I take this and lay it up onto the roof, you can see we have a very, very close, tight fit there from the paper to the roof. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. If there's a few little gaps in there, tiny little gaps, that's okay, because that's going to be covered by packing tape, so you don't have to worry about that. Try and get it as close as you can, but there is going to be some little variations with your cutting line and all that. It's all good. So now I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to determine how tall I want my humps to be. So I'm going to take another line and just kind of figure out, obviously it's going to taper off smaller in toward the end and then kind of build up more towards this section right here and then taper in toward the front as well. Definitely don't want this huge thing all the way across, otherwise I'm going to end up with some really weird looking, you know, hunchback type of deal. I don't want that. So it's got to be really nice, smooth graduation up. Kind of most of the buildup is going to be right in this area, right about here, and then it's going to taper down really nice and smooth to the point where it's just literally going to be fiberglass right on the roof. So the clay is going to end probably about here and here. So it's going to come all the way down to the point where the fiberglass is just going to be directly on the roof. That will apply also for the edge on the outside as well. The clay is going to be built up mostly towards right about here, and then it's going to taper off down as it gets toward the edges. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and play around with a couple of different widths for the height of the humps, and then I will get back to you. Okay, and here's what I've ended up with. I've got about 1.5 inches is what I decided in total thickness at the widest part, and then it tapers off in the front and in the back as I was describing before. Now I decided to go 1.5 inches. At first glance it may look like that may be a little too big. As I put it up against the car here, you can see like that, but I actually decided let's just start with 1.5 inches. It's going to be easier for me to lay up the clay, and if it looks like it's too tall in the clay, it's easier to remove it or shrink it than it would be to try and add more clay to it if it's too small. So that's why I went ahead and decided to keep the 1.5 inches at the widest point, and I think that's looking pretty darn good. Once it's all laid up in the clay, it's going to be awesome. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and cut that out, and I'm actually going to make 2 copies of this. I'll just cut one out and then use that as a template to trace another one and cut another one out. That's going to be for the other side, which we're going to do later. And then we'll go ahead and start covering it in packing tape and getting it fixed from this point right here to that point as closely as we possibly can. Okay, I got it cut out, and you can see, I don't know how this is happening right now, but I actually got it to lay up just sitting there on the top of the car. But that's giving us an awesome look at how this is going to look when I start laying up the clay. So this is the actual width that the humps are going to be. Hopefully you guys can see that. And I think that looks amazing. I may even just keep that 1.5 inches. I really am liking the way that that looks. It's looking really good. So I'm now going to go ahead and cover this in packing tape and affix it to the roof. So I will just start layering packing tape, probably vertically like this, and then just drape it over and then leave little flaps on the base so that it just stays up as a nice ridge line, and that way I'll be able to start laying up my clay against it. Alright, we have our template now affixed to the roof. It's got tape along both sides, both this side and the other side, holding it nice and securely. I made sure to press in that tape really tight along the base here on both sides so that it was a nice straight and upright position. As you can see, looking from the front, pretty darn straight there. And the way that I determined to get the line straight from this point to this point is I actually laid a piece of packing tape, as you can see there, just straight across from that point to that point, and then I laid the tape up along this back ridge of the tape. It was really nice because the tape actually allowed me to just kind of pull the template onto that little ridge, and it stopped right there as I was taping it, so I got a really nice straight line. There's from the back, pretty darn straight, definitely good enough. And now I am ready to start laying up the clay. I didn't need to do this back part because I'm just going to take the clay and just kind of taper it down until it disappears, and then I'll just be fiberglassing as I explained earlier. And right here I did go ahead and draw another little line. I think I'm just going to take the clay up to that line and then fiberglass from there down to the front here. Okay, so we are now ready to start laying up our clay on the passenger side now. But that's going to be in the next part, guys. That's it for this one. We're off to a great start with this thing. Hope you guys are enjoying so far. Like I said, I'm going to be trying to keep my videos a little more shorter and concise, and then just upload them in pieces so you guys aren't watching huge videos at a time. But I appreciate you guys coming back and watching this. If you're not subscribed, feel free to subscribe down below so you don't miss the next parts of this build. Very excited. It's going great so far, so I'm so excited to share with you guys the result on the new roof. So stay tuned. Peace out, guys, and God bless.
途中から解禁している